Bienvenidos, worldwide fans of the planet's hottest entertainment with an edge. I'm En Fuego here, and I welcome you to my namesake program, Enfuegotainment, once again for a Rapido Fuego review of a brand new series that recently debuted on Peacock TV. So what the hell is Peacock TV? Well, basically there is another entrant into the streaming wars, featuring none other than NBC, Universal, and a large quota of original stuff, past TV content, some Universal movies, and all this other stuff. So as if it wasn't clogged enough just fight at this particular point between HBO Max and CBS All Access and Netflix and Prime and Hulu and Disney Plus and Shudder, which I love, and even little guys like Tubi and Vudu and stuff. Yeah, well, we have another one, and the reason that I was so curious about checking this program out is because of the fact that Brave New World is one of my absolute favorite books of all time. I just picked up this nice new hardcover of it. I could not find my paperback when I saw this was about to debut on the NBC Universal streaming service, and so I was like, well, I ordered one on Amazon, and yes, it was a pleasure to reread it once again. Originally published in 1932, but Huxley's story in a very different fashion to 1984, which it's often compared to, which was written like, what, 17 years later, I think. This one takes a more satirical and snide view at a dystopian future where, it's carnal and it's very just coldly, what's the word, I don't know, you are basically numb in this future society because there's no families, there's no monogamy, and all of that. So Brave New World coming to Peacock TV, I was very skeptical. The only thing I was kind of cool with was the fact that they were going to be TVMA, so they were going to give them free reign for orgy-porgy and for, some violence and obviously language, and there's tons of F-bombs throughout this. This is essentially the equivalent of something you would see on like an HBO, a Showtime, or at least in certain cases on the streaming services like Prime and whatnot, where they just let them just go all out, The Boys being one of those instances. And so I also recently this past week watched the original two versions of this. They did a mini-series on NBC in 1980, which was very, very faithful. A little overacted, a little silly, but it's fine. And then in 1998, once again, NBC obviously has this property, and they did a 1998 version of it, which was very, very loosely based. And whereas I appreciate that 1980 version, despite the fact that it feels very Star Trek-y to me at times, and like all of their outfits that they're wearing and so on and so forth, and the character of John being taken from the savage lands of New Mexico and brought to this dystopian, futuristic, perfect society where people are made in test tubes, and the caste system and the conditioning and all of this other stuff. This book was so friggin' ahead of its time, and chapter 16 specifically, the conversation between John Helmholtz and Bernard, obviously with Mustafa, it's just incredible. It's just the discussion about the necessity of doing away with art and tinkering with science and religion and all these other things, and how those are tools to make people feel, and you don't want people to feel because feelings can often create tension and conflict and stuff like that. And so, yeah, very fascinating ideas in this. And to be honest, I came in to this 2020 version of the story, especially after how much I hated the 98 version. And the 98 version had some serious talent. It had Peter Gallagher in the role of Bernard. It had Miguel Ferrer was playing the director. Oh goodness, I'm trying to remember his Tompkin or whatever the hell the nickname that he got from Linda was. Obvious, talented people involved in the proceedings. Leonard Nimoy playing Mustafa. And that 1998 version is a lump of shit. It's so just streamlined in the fact that I think it's less than 90 minutes or somewhere around there. And yet this is a relatively short book. It's, like not even 250 pages, I don't think. But it just really did not bring to the proceedings the performance that I wanted, and especially the way they handle the character of John in 98. Yes, he loves his Shakespeare and stuff, but the dude, they turn the Savage Lands into a gathering of the Juggalos or some shit, and you've got the character of John, he's going around with this cowboy hat like he's goddamn Bret Michaels or something, and yet then he starts spouting off poetry. I will say, interestingly enough, it was intriguing what they did with the ending of the 98 version. It's one of the only things that I kind of liked about it, in the fact that, spoilers, Bernard and Lenina actually end up together, and they have a child and they leave, and so props to them for at least changing that up, because like I said, the 80 version, while very dated and cheesy, much more faithful to the amazing source material here. So now that I'm out of breath, how good or bad is this 2020 version? You have to figure, as I did, that it was going to be taking some liberties. It was going to be a reimagining. It was going to be a new interpretation. And in that fact, it is. And I liked a lot of the changes. You know, this goes back to me being a Stephen King fan, and the fact that King loves playing with the multiverse, and if you're a tower junkie like myself, you know that there's something called a different turn of the wheel, or a different level of the tower, and it's that you need some nuances and differences, especially if a story is being retold. Once again, the 80 version was very, very faithful to this, despite toning things down significantly as far as, you know, kind of the carnal hedonism and whatnot. So I was all for kind of a different take on this. And yes, it's 9 episodes, and I will admit, it's a little long in the tooth. It does drag during some of those middle episodes, but it's faithful in some aspects, much more faithful than I was expecting with like the orgy stuff, and there's a lot of sex in this, and yet it's done very tastefully. Visually, this is like just gorgeous. I mean, a lot of people ragged on Tomorrowland, the Disney movie from a few years ago, that was their just, you know, dramatic interpretation of the famous ride at their theme park, but it looked beautiful, and this show looks beautiful. It is utterly gorgeous. I must say I had a few issues with how they kind of redid the Savage Lands, because it was in some ways similar to how they approached it in 98, but the differences, and this is a non-spoiler review, everybody, the differences and the nuances that I appreciated so much was the fact that they legitimately made the Savage Lands seem very dangerous, especially for the sheer fact that, you know, New London basically has a corresponding, it's like within this Savage Land, there's like a Savage Land theme park almost, that basically for visitors from New London and from other societies, I would assume, you know, because you've got the 10 different controllers, the world is broken up into all of these super societies essentially. So if you visit, you get a taste of the savage world, the old world, what they lived like, and there's people, it's almost like the opening of Krampus, where the people on Black Friday are storming the establishment trying to get all the deals, and so you've got that, and you have you know, the House of Monogamy, which is where they reenact a wedding and there's conflict at the wedding. And so yeah, I mean, they took some interesting artistic liberty with portraying the Savage Lands, and I dug it. And they seem genuinely dangerous, because in those first few episodes where Lenina and Bernard, they go to, you know, just tour the place, and obviously Bernard is his character is under scrutiny, just like in the book, for, you know, being distant and different, and they joke about how, you know, that when he was being made in that test tube, like, something went wrong, and that's why he's shorter, and that's why he acts strange, and all this other stuff. So that's retained directly from the source material here. And so, yes, him and Lenina, they go and they tour. Lenina has been banging down Henry, just like in the book. And so, it's a big red flag if you're consistently having sex with the same person for a long period of time, because everyone belongs to everyone, right? And so, yeah, they retain a lot of the themes here, and they do it in just a good means of relatability for 2020, as far as just cranking it up, making it more sexual, making it more dangerous. And those couple episodes on the Savage Lands, when we first meet John, played by Alden Ehrenreich, I believe his name is, and yeah, he is notoriously from Solo: A Star Wars Story. I actually did not mind that movie. A lot of people, especially certain Star Wars fans, hardcore hated on it. Those were such impossible shoes to fill. Harrison Ford, for God's sake, and you know, he was good in Hail Caesar, and he's pretty damn good in this as John, and yet he's working at the House of Monogamy as like a stagehand, basically. And since I don't want to spoil any of this, he basically becomes involved with this kind of, I guess, rebellion sort of movement that is coming together on the Savage Lands, and there's a crazy beat that goes down, which is really interesting. And so there is, like, you feel legit danger when you're there with Bernard and Lenina, and Demi Moore is playing a very different version of Linda, and I thought her performance was pretty damn good, especially after reading some stuff about how her career careened after becoming the highest paid woman in Hollywood when she made Striptease. It was like almost $13 million they paid for her, and it destroyed her career, you know, and so she still has a lot of dramatic chops, and I thought she was good in the, you know, different take on Linda. Honestly, just to double down on the acting, everybody is really good in this, especially the character of Bernard. The actress who plays Lenina is very good. Francine is very much expanded as a character in this, which I appreciated. You are going to have some gender swapping, as you would expect in this. You know, I really loved the character of Helmholtz in the original source material, and his friendship with John, and the fact that they bond over Shakespeare and everything, and I mean, that stuff is fascinating. They omit that in this. That's one of the few things that I will spoil. John, as opposed to being Shakespeare and poetry centric, in this he's actually music centric, and I was okay with that. You know, he's going to the dude who was in 31, and also in the most recent Rob Zombie movie, the third, the sequel to Devil's Rejects. I'm trying to remember what the hell it was called. It was kind of forgettable in my estimation, which is why I'm not even remembering the title, but nonetheless, that dude who was Sid Haig's replacement in that third film in the House and the Rejects trilogy, he's in it briefly. He's good. We also have homie from Across the Universe, who was the friend of our main character. He's good in a role at the House of Monogamy. So, I mean, honestly, across the board. And, you know, Helmholtz, as I was alluding to just a moment ago before I get too distracted, is now as opposed to being somebody who lectures and, you know, programs and stuff at their like university, their college of sorts, now it is a woman who puts on these big, just hedonistic parties of sorts, these big orgy-porgy sort of situations with lights and music, and so drastically different take on the character. The actress does a great job with it, but that's a change that I didn't like. Now, a change that I was totally okay with was Mustafa being a black woman instead in this. The British actress was great in the role. She really took the character in different territories, where there, as opposed to this very stoic and somber and almost kind of snideness that the controller has in the source material, and really great performance by the actor in the 1980 version as Mustafa. Actually, the 1980 version had a great take on that character, and also Nimoy was pretty good in '98. But I liked the fact that there was more of a I don't want to say frail take, but just, I mean, you could tell that it was a more nuanced character that maybe had some personal trauma that they allude to and that they eventually get to and whatnot. So, yeah, the story does go into some different territories, but then it also remains very faithful in others. But with reference to the runtime and the fact that this probably could have been 6, maybe 8 episodes, as opposed to the 9 that they actually went with, and thank God they didn't go for 10. But there are aspects of our characters where Bernard, especially within this, you know, there are times where he seems very sympathetic, and he is the character that he, you know, is written early in the book, where, you know, he's sad and he's just hung up on Lenina, but yet he's socially awkward and all this other stuff. But then, you know, when he brings John into society, if you've read the book or seen any previous adaptation, you know that, yeah, he kind of uses it to his advantage for fame and all of that stuff. But it just really ping-pongs a lot of these characters, and in this, John kind of embraces this sort of celebrity and fandom and stuff, and kind of falls prey to, like, the John character in this, I will definitely say, not just Alden's portrayal, but the character is written very differently. Just like I said, there's a very different take on Linda. Linda is more sympathetic in this, and yet John is definitely a little more reprehensible at times. And so these are, once again, interesting takes on the characters, and I had no idea Grant Morrison actually helped in the development in this, and when I saw that, I had significantly more faith in the fact that it was going to be pretty quality. So yes, even if characters, they have wishy-washy motivations in some of those middle episodes and whatnot, it ends satisfyingly. But the one thing that I will say, and this is a spoiler, so if you don't want to have this one aspect spoiled, okay, they go very almost The Matrix in some of the back episodes, with the fact that we have Indra. And Indra is this linking collective consciousness of sorts that everybody has from these little stem like contact lens sort of things that everybody puts in. And it's very cool the way they do it visually, where if you have that lens in, you can see into other people's heads and peer from their perspective, and yet also it has the corresponding letter for what these people are, from alpha to beta all the way to epsilon. I think it's the lowest level, and that's, it's still like the opening chapter of this and the way they discuss the conditioning at the hatchery after they have test tube baby these things. You'll still never get anything as frightening in any interpretation, adaptation, as the way this first chapter is written, and the way you hear about just everything from, just noise conditioning to, heat conditioning, pain conditioning, all these different things, and how they tailor make people through all of that to be inclined and accepting of these levels in the system of, making this society function that they find themselves within. And if you're familiar with the source material, you know that John eventually, disregards this society and he starts this riot and whatever. But the final episode leaves it wide the fuck open for a second season. And I have mixed feelings about that, because they pretty much adapted the entire book and in turn added stuff. They didn't add stuff to the degree that the 1980 version did, where basically Linda and Tompkins trip to the Savage Lands and how she actually ends up there to birth John and everything. They actually, as opposed to just speaking about it like in the book and like in other interpretations of it, they actually show it and they dramatize that all out. And that was one of the few things I really dug about the 1980 version. But in this, they're going to forge forward, I'm assuming, because you do not have that sort of resolution, so to speak. And I didn't like that, personally. I feel like this should have been a Watchmen sort of situation, where it should have been a limited series, and very deliberately as such. But, aside from that, I really enjoyed this so much more than I was expecting. I liked a lot of the music choices. We had some Cat Power, we had some Nick Cave, we had honestly one of the best uses of fake plastic flowers by Radiohead from the Benz album. It ends the pilot episode, and it is the perfect song for this society and for everything that it epitomizes. It's terrific. And so yes, some purists may be really upset about the omission of the Shakespeare stuff, but I mean, yeah, as John has a character say to him at one particular time, and I'm paraphrasing, he's like, you're listening to all these songs about love and whatnot, but the most dangerous thing for a man to be is like a hopeless romantic of sorts. And I can speak from personal experience there. You will just put yourself through the ringer and whatnot. But yeah, as a whole, visually, musically, performance-wise, yes, there were some pacing and some writing issues in the middle. And I also had qualms with the way they left it wide open for this presumed second season if it's a success. But I really enjoyed Brave New World far more than I was anticipating. I'm going to give this 4 out of 5 Fuego Fireballs. It is #certified Fuego, and I recommend check out the first episode. It's free on Peacock. Also the second one is as well. If you want to watch the other 7 episodes, you do have to do the subscription thing. However, they have a 7-day free trial for the adless and for the ad-free. I don't know why anyone would pick, I'm going to do my 7-day free trial with ads. That sounds great. The fact that they even have 2 options made me laugh. But yes, $9.99 a month for Peacock TV, hell to the nizzo. I will not be doing that. However, if you want to watch the other 7 episodes, if you like those first 2, and boy, the second one ends on a big kind of cliffhanger, so you will definitely want to watch that 3rd episode as they're still in the Savage Lands. And sign up for that free trial, binge it, cancel it, unless you're really into the NBC lineup of programming, because they go decades and decades back with a lot of their shows. So if you're into that, that's cool. If not, watch, and most importantly, read Brave New World if you're down with that, or get the audiobook, on Audible or audiobooks or wherever you consume your listening. But I've been Jaime En Fuego. You can find them all on all social media sectors like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, here on YouTube. I do already have a review of Brave New World, the book, that I filmed shortly before I watched this series. So I will link that in the description below, so if you guys have the inclination to check that out, hear a little bit more about the source material. I had a pleasure discussing that. Here on my personal channel, it is primarily sci-fi, fantasy, comedy. I geek out with stuff like Star Wars. I occasionally do like comic reviews, animated stuff here and there. If you like spectacular stuff though, I am significantly more renowned for the larger channel that I am a producer and a co-host on. It's called The Horror Show Channel, youtube.com/The Horror Show Channel, like you see at the link below. Everything under the spooktacular, scarific sun, trailer reactions, reviews of films, television, comic books, novels. I do a weekly show on Saturdays called Hail to Stephen King. So that's a ton of fun, and a like, a share, and a subscribe here, and if you're inclined over there, means a hell of a lot. So I've been Fuego, y'all have been Rad Status Badassness, and until the real of Ka comes around once more, hasta luego, sin amigos, constant readers and viewers alike. Say thank you for taking the time to check out this video. I hope it leaves you inclined to check out Brave New World on Peacock TV, and I'm hopeful that we share more of this entertainment palaver sooner rather than later. And until then, stay home and watch more sci-fi TV.